The day Ethan Whitmore left his wife for his assistant, he smiled like he was upgrading his life, not realizing he was standing inside a company that already belonged to her. Claire Whitmore arrived at Bennett Global just after noon, with rain still clinging to the shoulders of her beige coat and a paper lunch bag warming her hands. The lobby smelled like polished stone, expensive coffee, and the kind of ambition that made people lower their voices when executives walked by. She had walked through those glass doors hundreds of times, but never as herself. To everyone there, she was just Ethan's quiet wife, the woman who brought homemade soup when he worked late, the woman who waited by elevators, the woman who smiled politely when people forgot her name. She was not supposed to matter. Not yet. Claire tightened her fingers around the lunch bag and glanced up at the silver letters mounted behind the reception desk. Bennett Global. Her father's name. Her father's dream. Her father's last unfinished sentence to her. One more week. He had written in the letter her lawyer had delivered. One more week and the company becomes yours in public, not just on paper. Claire had planned to tell Ethan tonight. She had planned to set the envelope on their kitchen table, slide it toward him and finally say, "I did not hide this from you because I did not trust you. I hid it because my father asked me to learn who people become when they think no one powerful is watching." She had even packed his favorite chicken noodle soup, the kind he used to ask for back when they shared a one-bedroom apartment in Queens and counted quarters for laundry. Back when Ethan kissed her forehead and promised, "One day, Claire, I'll build something worthy of you." The elevator chimed softly. The doors opened to the executive floor, where the carpet swallowed every footstep and the city stretched beyond the windows in cold blue glass. Claire moved toward Ethan's office, smiling despite the nerves fluttering under her ribs. Then she heard laughter. Not office laughter. Not polite laughter. Vanessa Reed's laughter, low and bright, coming from behind Ethan's half-open door. Claire stopped. Through the narrow gap, she saw Ethan standing close to Vanessa, his hands carefully fastening a diamond bracelet around her wrist. Vanessa lifted her arm, letting the stones catch the light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan smiled the way he used to smile at Claire. "You deserve beautiful things." The lunch bag sagged in Claire's hand. The soup container tilted warm against her palm. She should have knocked. She should have walked away. Instead, the door opened wider under the touch of her trembling fingers. Ethan turned. For half a second, guilt crossed his face. Then it vanished. Vanessa did not step back. She leaned closer, as if Claire had interrupted a meeting she was never qualified to attend. "Claire," Ethan said, his voice flat, almost annoyed. "What are you doing here?" Claire looked at the bracelet, then at his hand still resting near Vanessa's wrist. "I brought you lunch." Vanessa smiled, slow and sharp. "That is sweet. Very domestic." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temple like Claire was the problem in the room. "Do not make this harder than it has to be." The words landed softly but they cut deep. Claire blinked once. "Make what harder?" Ethan straightened his tie. He looked taller in that office, colder, like the furniture and the skyline had taught him how to dismiss people. "Us. This marriage. Whatever we have been pretending it is." The city hummed behind him. Phones rang somewhere down the hall. Claire could hear every small sound because her heart had gone painfully quiet. "Pretending?" she asked. Vanessa lowered her wrist and admired the bracelet. Ethan needs someone who understands the world he is entering. Ethan did not correct her. That was the part Claire would remember later. Not the bracelet. Not the laughter. The silence. The choice he made in that silence. "Claire," he said, softer now but not kinder. "You are a good woman. But Vanessa is the woman I should have chosen. She knows business. She knows power. She knows how to stand beside a man who is going somewhere." Claire glanced down at her own hand. Her wedding ring was plain silver, thin and scratched from years of dishes, laundry, office errands, and holding on too long. Ethan had bought it for $79 from a small shop in Brooklyn and apologized, because it was all he could afford. She had cried because she thought it was perfect. Now Vanessa's bracelet flashed brighter than that whole memory. "So that is it?" Claire asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I think you should go home." Vanessa's smile widened. "Some wives are just temporary." Claire looked at her, then back at Ethan. For one breath, the truth rose to her tongue. "My last name is Bennett. This building is mine. Your title, your office, your future. All of it sits on documents you have never been allowed to see. But she swallowed the words. Not because she was weak. Because the blue envelope was still sealed inside her purse. Because her father's final lesson had not finished playing out. Because Ethan had just shown her exactly who he was when he believed she had nothing. Claire set the lunch bag gently on the edge of his desk. Her hand no longer trembled. You are right, she said quietly. I should not embarrass myself. Ethan looked relieved, which hurt more than anger would have. Claire turned toward the door. Behind her, Vanessa gave a small laugh, already comfortable in a room that did not belong to her. Claire stepped into the hallway, where the Bennett Global logo glowed against the marble wall. She paused beneath it, rainwater dripping from the hem of her coat onto the spotless floor. Then she reached into her purse and touched the blue envelope from Patricia Hale, the family attorney. Tomorrow morning, the board would gather on the 42nd floor. Tomorrow morning, Ethan would expect a promotion. Tomorrow morning, Claire Bennett Whitmore would stop being invisible. Claire did not take the elevator down right away. She walked past the executive offices with the lunch bag no longer in her hands and the blue envelope pressed flat against her side inside her purse. Every glass wall reflected a version of her she almost did not recognize. Pale face, wet hair tucked behind one ear. Beige coat too simple for a floor where people wore confidence like a uniform. Two junior analysts stepped aside as she passed, not because they respected her, but because they barely noticed her. That had always been the strange gift of being underestimated. People spoke freely around you. People forgot to lower their voices. People revealed the pieces they thought no one would ever collect. At the corner near the copy room, Claire stopped when she heard Vanessa again, this time sharper, less sweet. Move the guest list before 5. I do not want Ethan's wife wandering into the gala tonight and making everyone uncomfortable. A man answered quietly, but Mrs. Whitmore was on the original list. Vanessa laughed. Then make it look like a mistake. Claire stood behind the frosted glass, one hand resting on the strap of her purse. The gala. Bennett Global's anniversary gala. Her father had started that tradition 25 years ago in a rented hotel ballroom with folding chairs and grocery store flowers. Now it filled one of the most expensive venues in Manhattan, with donors, board members, reporters, and executives pretending they had built the company from the ground up. Claire had not planned to attend as a guest. She had planned to attend as Ethan's wife, quietly, one last night before the announcement. She had imagined taking his hand under the table when Patricia revealed the truth, imagined his shock turning into pride, imagined him whispering, "Why did you not tell me sooner?" That fantasy felt almost childish now. Claire pulled out her phone and opened the message from Patricia Hale. Board packet ready. Trust confirmation signed. Public transition can proceed whenever you authorize. Claire stared at the words until they blurred. Then she typed back only 4 words. Not tonight. Tomorrow morning. She locked the phone and kept walking. At reception, the young woman behind the desk looked up with a careful smile. "Mrs. Whitmore, do you need a car called?" Claire almost corrected her. "Not Mrs. Whitmore. Not for much longer." Instead she said, "No thank you. I will walk." Outside, the rain had softened into a gray mist. Manhattan moved around her in honking taxis, black umbrellas, wet sidewalks, and people rushing like every second had a price tag. Claire walked 3 blocks without feeling the cold. In her mind, she was back in a small house in Connecticut, sitting on the floor of her father's study while Richard Bennett signed papers at his desk. He used to let her stamp old envelopes with the company seal, calling her his smallest board member. When she was 14, she asked him why his office was not on the top floor like other important men. He smiled and said, "Power does not need the highest room, sweetheart. It needs the clearest purpose." Years later, when cancer made his voice thin and his hands unsteady, he told her the company would come to her quietly. Not with headlines. Not with applause. Quietly, so she could learn the temperature of every room before she owned the building. "Watch how they treat the person who cannot help them," he had whispered. "That is where the truth lives." Claire reached the apartment she shared with Ethan a little after 2. It was neat, expensive, and strangely empty. Ethan had chosen the furniture after his first big bonus. Gray couch, glass coffee table, art with no warmth. Claire had added only small things, a ceramic bowl by the door, framed photos from their early days, a blue kitchen towel her father once said made any place feel like home. She removed her wet coat and laid it over a chair. Then she stood in the bedroom doorway and looked at the life she had mistaken for love. Ethan's cufflinks sat on the dresser. His watchbox was open. His side of the closet was almost bare where he had recently moved his best suits to the office, claiming it was more efficient. Claire now wondered how many lies had been folded between those jackets. On her nightstand rested a small wooden frame holding a photo from their courthouse wedding. Ethan wore a navy suit that did not fit quite right. Claire wore a cream dress from a clearance rack. They were laughing because it had started snowing outside, sudden and soft, like the city had blessed them anyway. She picked up the frame, touched the corner once, then set it face down. Her wedding ring caught the light. Thin silver. Scratched. Honest. For a long moment, she twisted it slowly around her finger. Then she slid it off and placed it beside the blue envelope. The sound it made against the table was tiny, but to Claire it felt like a door closing. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan appeared. Please do not come to the gala tonight. It is better for everyone. Claire read it twice. No apology. No explanation. No kindness. Just management. She did not answer. Instead, she opened the blue envelope and unfolded her father's final letter. The paper smelled faintly of cedar from the old office safe. The first line nearly broke her. My Claire, when they mistake your silence for weakness, let the truth speak louder than anger. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, breathing carefully until the ache in her chest became something steadier. Not rage. Not revenge. Resolve. She reached for her phone and called Patricia. The lawyer answered on the second ring. Claire. Claire looked at the ring on the table, then at the letter in her hand. Move the board meeting to 9 tomorrow morning, she said. Invite every director, the compliance team, and Ethan. Patricia paused. Are you certain? Claire lifted her eyes to the rain-streaked window, where the city lights were beginning to wake. Yes, she said. And Patricia, make sure Vanessa Reed is there too. By 7 that evening, Bennett Global's anniversary gala was already glowing above Midtown like a glass lantern in the rain. Black cars lined the curb outside the hotel, their tires hissing over wet pavement as guests stepped out beneath wide umbrellas. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with white orchids, gold-rimmed glasses, polished marble, and the soft murmur of people who knew how to smile while measuring one another. Claire arrived alone in the cream dress she had bought 2 years ago for Ethan's first executive dinner. It was simple, modest, and carefully pressed. Around her neck she wore no diamonds. On her left hand, there was only the pale mark where her wedding ring had been. She had almost stayed home. She had almost let the night belong to Ethan and Vanessa. But then she remembered her father standing in that first rented ballroom decades ago, thanking janitors, assistants, drivers, and accountants before he thanked investors. This gala was not Ethan's stage. It was her father's legacy. Claire stepped toward the check-in table, where 2 young women in black dresses scanned the guest list on tablets. One looked up with a professional smile. Name, please. Claire Whitmore. The woman typed, paused, typed again. Her smile tightened. I am sorry, I am not seeing you here. Claire was not surprised. Still, the humiliation warmed her face. Could you check under Bennett? The woman hesitated, then searched again. Before she could answer, Vanessa appeared near the entrance in a red satin gown that seemed designed to catch every flash of light. Ethan stood beside her, one hand at the small of her back, speaking to a board member as if the room had already crowned him. Vanessa saw Claire first. Her eyes brightened with satisfaction. Claire, she said, just loud enough for nearby guests to turn. You came. Ethan's smile disappeared. He crossed the marble entry with quick, controlled steps. I told you not to come. Claire kept her voice calm. I remember. Vanessa tilted her head. There must have been a misunderstanding with the guest list. These events are carefully curated. A few people nearby pretended not to listen. That only made it worse. Ethan lowered his voice, but not enough. Go home, Claire. Please. This room is for people who matter. For a moment, the noise of the gala faded behind the sound of Claire's own breathing. She looked past him into the ballroom. On the far wall, beneath a wash of golden light, hung a large portrait of Richard Bennett. Her father's eyes were kind, steady, almost amused, as if he had known this moment would come and trusted her to. Claire left the hotel before Ethan finished his speech. No one stopped her this time. No one even looked closely. That was the strange mercy of being dismissed. Once people decided you were unimportant, they stopped guarding their secrets around you. Outside, the rain had thinned to a cold mist, and the city smelled like wet pavement, car exhaust, and expensive perfume drifting from the gala entrance behind her. Claire stood under the hotel awning for a moment, listening to applause rise through the glass doors. Ethan was probably smiling under the chandeliers. Vanessa was probably standing close enough to be photographed. Somewhere inside, the Meridian North folder was moving from one hand to another like a quiet match near dry paper. Claire opened her phone and saw 3 missed calls from Ethan. Then a message. "You embarrass me tonight. We will discuss this when I get home." She stared at the screen until the words lost their shape. "We will discuss this." Even now, he spoke like she was an employee who had missed a deadline. Claire deleted the message without answering and stepped into the rain. The apartment was dark when she returned. She did not turn on the overhead lights. She moved through the rooms by the soft glow of the city outside the windows, past the gray couch, past the glass table, past the framed wedding photo still face down on her nightstand. On the kitchen counter sat 2 mugs from their first Christmas together. One chipped at the handle, one stained faintly with coffee. Ethan had once said they would keep them forever because rich people bought new things, but happy people kept old ones. Claire almost touched his mug. Then she let her hand fall. At 10:30, Patricia arrived with a leather briefcase, her silver hair tucked neatly beneath a rain hood, and her expression calm in the way only experienced lawyers could be calm before a storm. Claire opened the door before she knocked. Patricia stepped inside, glanced once at Claire's bare hand, and understood enough not to ask. "Compliance has begun preserving the records," Patricia said. "Access logs, outgoing files, board communications, anything attached to Meridian North. I also asked internal audit to secure the contract archive before morning." Claire nodded. "Can Ethan stop it?" "Not if you sign these." Patricia placed the briefcase on the dining table and removed a stack of documents bound with blue tabs. "Emergency authorization from the controlling shareholder. It freezes any sale, transfer, or data sharing agreement until the board completes review." Claire sat slowly. The table where she had planned to save her marriage was now covered with papers that might end Ethan's career. The thought did not bring joy. That surprised her. Part of her wanted the clean satisfaction of anger, something hot enough to burn away the ache. But what she felt was heavier and quieter. Grief. For the man Ethan had been. For the girl she had been when she believed love could make ambition kind. Patricia slid a pen toward her. "Claire, once this begins, there is no simple way to put the mask back on." Claire looked at the blue tabs, then at the pale circle on her finger where the ring had rested for years. "I do not want the mask back." She signed the first page. Her signature looked different tonight. Stronger. More like Bennett than Whitmore. Patricia watched silently as Claire signed each document. When she finished, Patricia reached into the briefcase again and removed an old cedar box. Claire froze. "That was in my father's safe?" Patricia nodded. "He instructed me to give it to you before your first official board meeting." Claire opened the box carefully. Inside lay a small silver company badge from Bennett Global's earliest days, scratched at the edges, with Richard Bennett's name engraved beneath the faded logo. Under it was a folded note. Claire lifted it with unsteady fingers. "My Claire, a company is not owned by the person who can take the most from it. It belongs to the person willing to protect the people inside it. If you are reading this, then the room is finally yours. Do not enter it angry. Enter it clear." Claire pressed the note to her lips and closed her eyes. For the first time since Ethan opened that office door, a tear slipped free. Patricia did not look away. She simply waited, letting the silence do its work. At 11:47, the front door unlocked. Ethan walked in smelling of rain and ballroom cologne, his bow tie loosened, his face tight with irritation. He stopped when he saw Patricia at the table. His eyes moved to the documents, then to Claire. "What is this?" he asked. Claire folded her father's note and placed it back inside the cedar box. "A conversation you should have earned before tonight." Ethan's gaze sharpened. Claire, I am not in the mood for drama. Patricia closed her briefcase with a soft click. Then tomorrow morning may be difficult for you, Mr. Whitmore. Ethan looked at her confused, then back at Claire. For the first time all day, something like uncertainty entered his face. Claire stood, calm and tired and no longer small. Be at the boardroom at 9, she said. And bring Vanessa. For one full second, Ethan did not answer. He stood in the apartment doorway with rain on his shoulders and irritation still arranged across his face, but Claire saw the first crack of confusion underneath it. Patricia Hale was not the kind of woman people dismissed easily. Her navy suit was dry despite the weather, her posture exact, her briefcase closed like a locked vault. Ethan looked from Patricia to Claire, then gave a short laugh that did not sound amused. Is this about the gala? He asked. Because if you are trying to punish me by involving a lawyer, you are making a mistake. Claire folded her hands in front of her. Her left ring finger felt strangely light. The mistake was thinking tonight was only about us. Ethan's expression hardened. Do not talk in riddles. You walked into a professional event where you did not belong, embarrassed me in front of the board, and now you are sitting here with legal documents like this apartment is a courtroom. Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly, but Claire lifted one hand, stopping her from speaking. This was not Patricia's wound to answer for. Ethan stepped farther inside, tossing his keys into the ceramic bowl Claire had bought from a street fair years ago. The sound made her flinch, not from fear but memory. He used to drop his keys there every evening and call, "I am home," like the words meant something sacred. Tonight, he did not say them. You should apologize to Vanessa, he continued. She handled tonight with more grace than most women would. Claire studied him quietly. It was almost impressive how completely he had rewritten the night to protect himself. Vanessa removed me from the guest list. She was trying to prevent a scene. She took a folder from Meridian North. Ethan froze for half a beat. It was small, almost nothing, but Claire caught it. So did Patricia. I do not know what you are talking about, he said. Claire's voice stayed gentle. Yes, you do. The apartment became very still. Outside, traffic hissed over wet streets 30 floors below. Ethan looked at Patricia again, and this time irritation sharpened into caution. Whatever you think you saw, Claire, you do not understand corporate strategy. Meridian North has been discussed as a potential partner for months. Patricia spoke at last. A partner vetted by the board, Mr. Whitmore, or a side agreement prepared outside authorized channels? Ethan's face changed. Not much but enough. This is confidential business. Claire nodded. That is what makes it worse. He turned on her then, all patience gone. You have no idea what it takes to run a company at this level. You bring soup to the office and think that gives you insight into billion-dollar decisions. The words hit the room and stayed there. Claire felt them, but they did not enter her the way they would have yesterday. Yesterday, she might have tried to explain that kindness was not ignorance. Yesterday, she might have reminded him of the nights she helped him rehearse presentations, the mornings she ironed shirts before his investor calls, the quiet years she gave him while carrying a secret heavy enough to bend her life around it. Tonight she only looked at him. Be careful, Ethan. He laughed again, colder this time. Or what? Patricia reached for the signed documents. Claire stopped her with a glance. Not yet. The reveal belonged in the room her father built, not in a living room where love had already died. Ethan adjusted his cuffs, regaining the arrogance that had carried him all evening. Tomorrow morning, I am meeting with the board about my executive appointment. I do not have time for whatever this is. You will make time, Claire said. 9 o'clock. Claire. His voice dropped into the tone he used when he wanted obedience to sound like concern. You are upset. I understand that. But do not come to Bennett Global tomorrow and humiliate yourself further. There are rooms in that building you simply cannot walk into because you want attention. Something quiet moved across Patricia's face, almost pity. Claire walked to the dining table, picked up the plain silver wedding ring, and held it in her palm. For years, it had been proof that she believed in who Ethan could become. Now it was proof that belief could be misplaced. She placed it gently beside the cedar box, not throwing it, not dramatizing it, just setting down the last piece of a life she no longer wished to carry. Ethan stared at the ring. For the first time, his confidence flickered for longer than a breath. "What are you doing?" he asked. Claire met his eyes. "Returning something that no longer fits." His mouth tightened. "You are being emotional." "No," Claire said. "I was emotional when I married you. I was hopeful when I trusted you. I was patient when I stayed silent. What I am now is awake." Patricia stood and gathered her briefcase. "Mr. Whitmore, I strongly recommend that you attend the board meeting on time." Ethan looked between them, suspicion deepening. "What is going on?" Claire opened the front door. The hallway light spilled in, pale and clean. 9 o'clock, she repeated. "Bring Vanessa, bring your confidence, and bring whatever story you plan to tell the board." Ethan did not move at first. Then slowly he picked up his keys from the ceramic bowl. His eyes dropped once more to the ring on the table, then to the blue envelope, then to Claire's face. He wanted to ask. She could see it. But pride held his mouth shut. When he finally walked out, the door closed softly behind him. Claire stood in the silence he left behind. Patricia touched the cedar box with 2 fingers. "Your father would be proud of how you handled that." Claire looked at the ring, small and silver beneath the kitchen light. "Tomorrow," she said, "I am going to handle more than my marriage." Claire did not sleep much, but when morning came, she rose before the alarm. The city outside was pale and washed clean, the rain gone, the windows glowing with a thin silver light. For a few minutes, she stood barefoot in the quiet apartment and let herself feel the emptiness without running from it. Ethan's side of the closet was half open. His favorite mug still sat by the sink. The wedding photo remained face down on the nightstand. Everything looked familiar, yet nothing belonged to the life she had woken up in yesterday. Claire showered, dried her hair, and chose the white suit Patricia had once told her to save for the day she stopped asking permission. It was simple, tailored, and sharp without being loud. She fastened Richard Bennett's old company badge inside her jacket, close enough to her heart that no one else could see it. Then she placed the blue envelope in her purse. Last, she looked at the silver wedding ring still lying on the dining table. She did not take it. At 8:15, a black car waited at the curb. Patricia was already inside, reviewing documents with a pair of reading glasses low on her nose. She looked up as Claire entered and gave the smallest approving nod. "You look like your father when he had already made a decision." Claire managed a faint smile. "He made decisions better than I do." "Not always," Patricia said. "He just learned not to confuse kindness with hesitation." The car moved through Manhattan traffic, past coffee carts, delivery bikes, crosswalks filled with people carrying paper cups and private worries. Bennett Global appeared ahead. 42 stories of glass and steel catching the morning sun. Claire had seen that building all her life in photographs, contracts, annual reports, and memories, but today it looked different. Not taller. Not grander. Just honest. Place made by people. A place that needed protecting. Inside the lobby, the receptionist straightened when she saw Patricia. "Good morning, Miss Hale." Then her eyes shifted to Claire, and confusion flickered. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Claire smiled gently. "Good morning, Dana." The young woman blinked, surprised Claire knew her name. Claire knew many names. She knew the night janitor sent money to his sister in Ohio. She knew the cafeteria manager kept extra muffins for interns who missed breakfast. She knew the junior analyst on floor 18 had been working overtime for 3 weeks because Ethan cut his team's budget while praising efficiency at board lunches. Her father had taught her that a company was not a logo. It was 1,000 human details. The elevator opened. Patricia pressed the button for the 42nd floor. Claire watched the numbers climb. 12, 19, 27, 36. With every floor, yesterday's version of herself fell farther away. When the doors opened, the boardroom corridor was already busy. Assistants carried folders. Compliance officers stood near the glass wall. 2 directors whispered near the coffee station, their voices low and tense. At the far end of the hall, Ethan arrived in a charcoal suit, looking polished, rested, and confident enough to be dangerous. Vanessa walked beside him in a cream blouse and narrow black skirt. Tablet pressed to her chest, diamond bracelet flashing at her wrist. She saw Claire and stopped. Ethan stopped too. For one breath, neither spoke. Then Vanessa smiled. "Claire, this floor is restricted during board meetings." Claire did not slow down. I know. Ethan stepped into her path, lowering his voice. This is exactly what I warned you about. Whatever Patricia told you, she cannot turn hurt feelings into authority. Patricia approached from behind Claire, calm as winter glass. Mr. Whitmore, the meeting is beginning. Ethan looked past her toward the boardroom doors. Inside, the directors were taking their seats around the long walnut table. At the head of the room, the chair usually reserved for the controlling shareholder remained empty. Ethan's eyes lingered on it, and Claire saw the hunger there. Not ambition alone. Ownership. The belief that wanting something badly enough made him worthy of it. Vanessa touched his sleeve. Do not let this distract you, she murmured. Today is yours. Claire heard it. So did Patricia. Ethan lifted his chin and gave Claire one last look, the kind a man gives someone he has already dismissed in his mind. Stay outside, he said. Then he walked into the boardroom with Vanessa at his side. Claire waited in the corridor as the doors closed. Through the glass she watched Ethan greet the directors, shake hands, accept smiles. He placed his leather portfolio on the table near the empty headchair but did not sit there yet. Even he knew to wait until the crown was handed to him. Patricia stood beside Claire and opened the blue envelope. Are you ready? Claire looked at the Bennett Global logo etched into the boardroom glass. She thought of her father's note. Do not enter it angry. Enter it clear. She breathed in once. Yes. Inside, Ethan began speaking. His voice carried faintly through the door. This company needs a leader who is present, decisive, and not hidden behind old family arrangements. A few directors shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa smiled down at her tablet. Patricia opened the door. The room turned. Ethan's sentence died before it reached the end. Claire stepped inside and this time no one asked her to leave. The boardroom did not go silent all at once. It happened in layers. First, the compliance officer stopped typing. Then one director lowered his coffee cup without drinking. Then Vanessa's smile faded, not fully, just enough to show the effort behind it. Ethan remained standing near the long walnut table, one hand resting on his leather portfolio, his expression caught between annoyance and disbelief. Claire, he said carefully, as if speaking to someone who had wandered into the wrong room. This is not appropriate. Claire did not answer him. She walked past the side chairs, past the directors who had once nodded politely at her in elevators without ever asking why she was there, past the framed photograph of her father shaking hands with Bennett Global's first warehouse team. At the head of the table, the empty chair waited. She stopped beside it but did not sit. Not yet. Patricia entered behind her and placed the blue envelope on the table. The sound was soft, almost ordinary, but every eye moved to it. Ethan gave a thin laugh. Patricia, whatever personal issue my wife thinks she has brought here, it does not belong in a governance meeting. Patricia looked at him over the rim of her glasses. Mr. Whitmore, this meeting was called by the controlling shareholder. Ethan's brows pulled together. Then where is he? No one moved. Claire watched the question travel around the room like a match looking for oxygen. One of the older directors, Samuel Price, shifted in his chair, his face pale with dawning recognition. He had known Richard Bennett. He had attended Claire's high school graduation. He knew exactly what was coming. Patricia opened the envelope and removed a certified packet with the Bennett family trust seal pressed into the top page. For the record, she said, her voice steady, the controlling shareholder of Bennett Global is not a he. Ethan's hand tightened on the back of a chair. Vanessa looked down at her tablet, then back up, calculating. Patricia continued. Per the final will and trust instructions of Richard Allen Bennett, majority ownership and voting control transferred privately to his daughter upon completion of the observation period required under Article 7 of the trust. The room held its breath. Claire reached into her jacket and removed the old silver company badge. She placed it beside the blue envelope. Richard Bennett, founder. The scratched metal caught the boardroom light. His daughter, Patricia said, is Claire Bennett Whitmore. Ethan stared at Claire as if her face had rearranged itself into a language he could not read. That is impossible. Claire finally looked at him. No. It was inconvenient. That is different. Vanessa let out a small, nervous laugh. There must be some confusion. Claire never mentioned any of this. Claire turned her gaze to Vanessa. No, I did not. Why would you hide something like that? Vanessa asked, trying to sound wounded, trying to make secrecy look like dishonesty before anyone could call it wisdom. Claire touched the edge of her father's badge. Because my father believed people show their character most clearly when they think power is not watching. The sentence landed harder than anger could have. Ethan's face reddened, then cooled. He adjusted his cuff, reaching for control. Even if this is true, which I am not conceding, corporate leadership requires experience. Ownership does not make someone qualified to run a global company. A few directors glanced at one another. Claire nodded once. You are right. Ethan blinked, thrown off by her calm agreement. Claire continued. That is why I spent the last 6 months reviewing department reports, employee turnover, vendor contracts, executive spending, and every delayed compliance flag this office dismissed as administrative noise. Patricia slid another folder across the table, including Meridian North. Vanessa went still. Ethan's eyes sharpened. That partnership is confidential. It was unauthorized, Patricia said. Claire opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, access records, draft agreements, and a timeline prepared before dawn. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Last night, I watched a Meridian North representative hand Vanessa read a transfer schedule. Compliance has now preserved related communications, including draft terms for a data sharing agreement that was never approved by this board. The compliance director, a quiet woman named Denise Marshall, cleared her throat. That is correct. Preliminary review confirms irregular external access requests connected to executive credentials. Vanessa's lips parted. I was following Ethan's instructions. Ethan turned on her, shocked by how quickly loyalty changed shape under pressure. Do not say another word. Claire watched them both. There it was. Not love. Not partnership. Just survival dressed in expensive clothes. She reached into her purse and took out the plain silver wedding ring. Ethan's eyes dropped to it immediately. Claire placed it on the table beside the evidence, not as drama, but as a final receipt. Yesterday, you told me Vanessa was the woman you should have chosen, because she understood power. Her voice stayed quiet. But neither of you understood responsibility. No one spoke. The city moved beyond the windows 42 floors below, bright and unaware. Claire pulled the headchair back. For the first time in her life, she sat where her father had intended her to sit. Then she looked at Ethan, not as his wife, not as the woman in the hallway, not as the person he sent home from her own gala. Mr. Whitmore, she said, we are going to begin with your explanation. Ethan did not speak right away. For the first time since Claire had known him, silence did not make him look thoughtful. It made him look exposed. His hand rested on the back of the chair, fingers pressed into the leather, while every director at the table waited for the confident man from the gala to explain why a competitor's transfer schedule had appeared in his assistant's hands. Vanessa stared at her tablet as if the screen might open a door beneath her and let her disappear. Claire sat at the head of the table with her father's badge beside her, the blue envelope open, the silver wedding ring catching a thin line of morning sun. This is being exaggerated, Ethan finally said. His voice was smoother now, the voice he used for investors when numbers looked worse than promised. Meridian North approached us regarding a strategic collaboration. I reviewed preliminary material. That is all. Denise Marshall from Compliance lifted a folder. Preliminary material does not usually include credentialed data access schedules, Mr. Whitmore. Samuel Price leaned forward. Nor does it bypass the Data Ethics Committee. Ethan's jaw tightened. I was moving quickly because this company has been slow for years. Richard Bennett was a visionary. But vision does not survive without decisive action. Claire felt the room shift at her father's name. Not anger. Warning. Ethan had made a mistake, but he did not know it yet. Claire looked down at the scratched company badge and remembered Richard in rolled-up sleeves, eating vending machine pretzels at midnight with warehouse staff during a snow delay because he refused to go home while they stayed. Vision, he used to say, was not a speech. It was who you refused to sacrifice when the numbers got tight. Do not use my father to decorate your excuse, Claire said. The sentence was quiet, but Ethan stopped. Vanessa raised her eyes. Claire, with respect, you are emotional. Anyone would be, after a personal disappointment. The old trick. Make the woman's clarity look like heartbreak. Make her facts look like feelings. Claire turned to her without blinking. With respect, Miss Reed, my personal disappointment is on the table beside the evidence. We are discussing the evidence. A faint breath moved through the room, not quite approval but recognition. Patricia clicked a remote, and the wall screen lit up. Emails appeared, time-stamped and organized. Meridian North. Executive access. Draft revenue allocation. Private bonus schedule. Vanessa's initials appeared beside 3 file requests. Ethan's approval code appeared beside 2. The room grew colder with every slide. Patricia spoke clearly. The proposed side agreement would have transferred client analytics to Meridian North under a consulting structure, while routing compensation through an outside advisory entity. That entity was created 6 weeks ago in Delaware. Denise added, beneficial ownership is still under review, but initial records connect it to a private mailbox used by Mr. Whitmore's executive office. Ethan pushed back from the table. That is not proof of misconduct. Claire looked at him. No, it is proof of a question. That is why you are not being judged in this room. You are being removed from any position where you can answer that question by touching more records. His face changed. The word removed reached him before the rest did. You cannot do that. Patricia slid a resolution across the table. She can. Vanessa stood too quickly, her chair rolling back a few inches. I had no authority. Ethan handled the negotiations. I scheduled meetings and received documents because he told me to. Ethan turned toward her. Vanessa. She stepped away from him. The diamond bracelet flashed on her wrist, bright and suddenly cheap-looking. Do not put this on me. Claire watched them separate in real time, 2 people who had mistaken proximity for loyalty. Yesterday, Vanessa had stood beside Ethan like a prize. Today she stood apart like a witness. The lesson was not satisfying. It was sadder than that. Ethan looked at Claire, then really looked at her, as if seeing every missed clue at once. The way security never questioned Patricia's calls. The way Claire knew employee names. The way she paused under the Bennett logo as if it were family, not branding. Claire, he said, and the softness in his voice came too late. We should talk privately. There it was. Not an apology. A strategy. Claire folded her hands. You had privacy yesterday. His eyes dropped to the ring. I made mistakes. You made choices. I was under pressure. So were the people whose jobs depended on the company you were willing to gamble with. That landed. Around the table, faces tightened. Directors, assistants, compliance staff. People who had worked too many late nights to become footnotes in someone else's ambition. Samuel Price cleared his throat. I moved to suspend Ethan Whitmore from all executive duties pending full investigation. Denise spoke next. Compliance supports immediate access restriction. Another director added. Seconded. Vanessa gripped her tablet. What about me? Claire looked at her, and for a moment she saw not glamour, not cruelty but panic. Still, panic did not erase harm. You are suspended pending review. Your company devices will remain here. Human resources and compliance will walk you through the process respectfully. Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. She removed the bracelet slowly, as if its weight had changed, and set it on the table near Ethan's portfolio. Ethan stared at it like another door closing. The vote was brief. Unanimous. Patricia collected the signed resolution, and security arrived not with spectacle, not with force, but with quiet professionalism. Ethan did not resist. He only looked at Claire from the doorway, his confidence gone, his voice low. Was any of it real? Claire knew what he meant. The marriage. The soup. The years. The woman he thought he could outgrow. She picked up the silver ring and held it in her palm one last time. It was real to me, she said. That was the difference. Ethan had no answer. The door closed behind him and Vanessa, and the boardroom remained still. Claire looked at the people around the table, at the evidence folders, at her father's badge, at the city beyond the glass. The reveal was over. The harder work was just beginning. The boardroom stayed quiet long after the door closed. No one rushed to speak. No one reached for coffee. The morning sun moved across the walnut table, touching the blue envelope, the evidence folders, and the old silver badge with Richard Bennett's name scratched into its surface. Claire sat at the head of the table and felt the weight of the chair settle around her, not like a throne but like a responsibility. For years she had imagined this moment as a clean ending, a door opening, her father's company finally becoming hers in the eyes of the world. But endings were rarely clean. They left papers to sign, people to reassure, damage to repair, and a heart that still had to learn how to beat without the person who had broken it. Samuel Price was the first to speak. "Miss Bennett, what would you like us to do now?" The name moved through the room gently. Miss Bennett. Not Mrs. Whitmore. Not Ethan's wife. Not the woman at the door. Claire looked at Denise from compliance, then at the directors, then at Patricia. "First, we protect the clients. Freeze every external data channel tied to Meridian North. Second, we protect the employees. No rumors, no panic, no quiet layoffs to make the numbers look clean. Third, we tell the truth carefully and completely." A director near the window nodded. "And the executive vacancy?" Claire looked at her father's badge. "Interim leadership will be shared between operations, compliance, and finance until we complete a full review. No one person gets unchecked control again." Patricia's eyes softened with approval, but Claire did not look for it. She had spent too long looking for approval from the wrong people. By noon, Bennett Global had changed without a single dramatic announcement. Ethan's access was disabled. Vanessa's accounts were frozen for review. Meridian North received a legal notice before lunch. Human Resources prepared a calm internal message. Clients were contacted directly. The company did not collapse. The sky did not fall. The building simply kept breathing, floor by floor, because hundreds of people who had never stood behind a microphone kept doing the work. At 3, Claire walked alone through the lobby. The same silver letters rose behind reception. Bennett Global. Dana, the receptionist, stood when she saw her, nervous now. "Miss Bennett, I am so sorry about yesterday. I did not know." Claire paused at the desk. She remembered the tight smile, the tablet, the embarrassment of having her name erased from a room her father built. Then she remembered something more important. Dana had not been cruel. She had been instructed. "You did your job," Claire said. "Next time if something feels wrong, ask a second question." Dana swallowed and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Claire smiled faintly. "And Dana? Never let a title make you forget your judgment." Near the elevator, she saw the night janitor from floor 18 pushing a supply cart. He started to move aside quickly, but Claire stopped. "Mr. Alvarez, your daughter's college application deadline is next week, right?" His eyes widened. "You remembered? My father taught me to remember the things that matter." The man's face softened in a way no board vote could have given her. By evening, Claire returned to the apartment one last time. Ethan had not come back. His watchbox was gone. His side of the closet was empty. On the dining table, the silver wedding ring still rested beside the chipped Christmas mug. Claire picked it up and turned it in her fingers. For a moment, she let herself mourn the version of the ring that had been beautiful because it was simple, because it meant two people were starting with nothing but faith. Then she placed it inside a small envelope and wrote one line across the front. "What I gave was real. What I keep is myself." She did not cry this time. A week later, Claire stood in the lobby again, not as a secret, not as a shadow, but as the new owner of Bennett Global. Employees filled the open space, standing along the stairs and balconies with paper cups of coffee and cautious hope. Claire wore the white suit again, with her father's old badge pinned openly over her heart. She did not give a long speech. She did not talk about betrayal. She talked about responsibility. "My father built this company with a simple belief," she said, her voice carrying through the lobby. "Power is not proven by how many people you can step over. It is proven by how many people can stand safely because you chose to lead well." Faces lifted. Assistants, analysts, drivers, accountants. People who mattered before anyone powerful said they did. "So today we begin the Second Chair Initiative," Claire continued. "Mentorship for overlooked employees. Independent reporting channels. Leadership training for the people who have been doing invisible work for too long." Patricia stood near the front, smiling quietly. Dana wiped at one eye behind the reception desk. Claire glanced up at the logo, And for a heartbeat she could almost hear her father's voice. The room is yours. Do not enter it angry. Enter it clear. Months later, when reporters asked Claire what it felt like to lose her marriage and gain a company in the same week, she never gave them the answer they expected. She did not call it revenge. She did not call it victory. She would only look through the glass walls of Bennett Global, where ordinary people carried extraordinary weight every day, and say, I learned that being underestimated can hide you for a while, but it can never erase who you are. And every morning after that, when Claire Bennett walked through the lobby, no one wondered whether she belonged there. The building already knew.